Hello. It's ukulele time. I'm Ben Eagle, Reader's Advisory Librarian and ukulele teacher at Carnegie-Stout Public Library. Today is Beginner's Lesson 3, and I'm going to teach you how to read tablature. Tab, T-A-B for short. It's basically, tablature is a quick and dirty way to learn how to read passages of music for ukulele. You don't have to learn how to read music to do this, which takes a little bit longer, and no prior knowledge of music is necessary, and I can teach it in one lesson. So I'll teach you how to read tablature. We'll do a few examples, and then we'll learn another chord to add to your repertoire, and we'll do a new strum pattern and chord progression that we will connect to the song Shortenin Bread, the old folk favorite. So let's get started. Okay, if you're new to tab, the sheet on the screen is going to look pretty foreign to you. But no worries, because I'm about to explain it. And it's pretty basic. Each of the lines going across horizontally, the little dotted lines, you might also see them as straight lines, but each of those going across represents a string. And you'll see on the left side all the different letters. Now, if you remember the names of the strings, G, C, E, A, good children eat asparagus. You'll notice that the G is on the bottom and the A is on the top. So it's kind of flipped. So that's one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're learning to read tab, is they're confusing the top for the bottom. So the A string, the string that's closest to your feet, when you're reading the tablature, it's actually the top line. So it's actually like you're flipping the strings and looking straight at them, if that makes sense to you. So the A string is going to be on the top, and the G is going to be the bottom one. So once you get used to reading it, it makes sense that the G towards your head is going to be on the bottom, and the A towards your feet is going to be on the top. So once you get that down, going across, you read the tab left to right. So the first number there, you'll see 3. So what the numbers represent is the fret that you'll be pressing down on. So the very first note, notice it's on the A string. There's no other notes being pressed. And you're going to hit the 3rd fret. So I got my finger on the 3rd fret. And notice it doesn't tell you which finger you're going to use. Tablature doesn't tell you that information. It just tells you what the notes are in there. It also doesn't tell you the rhythm. So if you have any familiarity with music, reading music, you know, like you'll see quarter notes and eighth notes when you're reading music. You won't see that in tablature. Sometimes people can kind of notate that in the tablature, but mostly you won't see that. Tablature assumes that you've already heard the song, that you're familiar with it. So you kind of have to figure out the rhythm on your own. So you're reading left to right. The first note is 3rd fret. I'm just going to do it with my 3rd finger because I kind of like to assign each of my fingers to these first 3 frets here. So I'm hitting that note. Okay, and you just hit it once. Then the next note is 0. 0 means it's an open string. So you're going to pluck that note. Then you go back to the 3 again. 3rd fret, we're still on the A string. And then 0 again. Okay, the lines going vertical are representing the next measure, or they might just represent the next sort of idea in the music. It's not always communicated like measures. So 3 0 3 0. That's what we have so far on the A string. Now notice the numbers are on the E string. So the second one up from your feet. So then it's kind of the same thing. 3 0 3 0. And I'm just plucking these notes with my pointer finger. You could use your pointer or your middle finger to pluck either one of those, or a combination of both. Okay. Now we're on the third measure or passage. So then it's kind of the same thing again. 3 0 3 0. And now the last measure is 1 on the A string, then 3 on the second string, and then 1 on the second string. Okay, then you put all that together. This is just a little musical idea. It goes. Okay, so we read our first bit of tablature. Now I'm going to go a little faster with these next ones, now that you get the basic concept of how to read it. So each of the lines across is a string. Each of the numbers is a fret number. 0 is open. We're reading left to right. So this next one should be pretty recognizable to a lot of people. Old children's favorite. Okay, so working slowly, you're just going left to right, 0 on the A string, then third, then 1, then 3. And notice, like I said, I kind of assign each of my fingers to a fret. So my first finger is getting the first fret. If any notes come up on the second fret, I'll be hitting it with my second finger, my middle finger. And any notes on the third fret, I'm getting with my third finger. Now you might see notes farther up the neck later on. That's okay. You just kind of assign whichever one makes the most sense for the reach. You just want to do the whatever is easiest to hit, and will save your hand the most motion in the long run. You don't want to play all these notes with one finger, because it's going to make you go a lot slower. It's the same concept of assigning your fingers to each of the notes on a computer keyboard. You're teaching them to play it with the least amount of movement, the fastest way. So you're kind of assigning each finger here. There's no hard rule about which one to do it. Just, figure out which one is going to be the most comfortable. And when we're just working with the first 3 frets, it makes sense to just do 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you can work on each of these on your own, and I don't expect anyone to go through all these and know how to play them right away. It's going to take some time and practice. And I'm showing these mostly as an example so you know how to read tablature. Okay? Now, the first passage should be fairly easy. I mean, starting out, you should be able to practice that and get that down, working on it regularly. If playing these is completely awkward and new to you, sitting down and doing it 10 minutes a day or more, just doing that tablature. Okay, this next one is going to be the melody we're using in a song coming up. So it's hopping around to different strings more, you'll notice. But it's using a lot of open strings. Now when I play these notes, I'm kind of alternating with my thumb and my first finger. You can also use your second finger when you're playing the higher notes. So anything on the C and G string, I'm just hitting with my thumb. Again, I'm not going through the technique really of this song too much. I just want you to understand how to read the tablature. So it starts with the C string with zeros. And then 2 zeros on the A string. Then 0, 0 on the G. And then 1, 0 on the A. So just to replay what I just did, it's going. Okay. Then notice I spaced them a little farther apart on the next measure. That's showing they're more like quarter notes. So we have 3, 4. Now, again, this isn't showing you the rhythm or anything. You kind of have to be familiar with the song to know what it's supposed to sound like. This is only showing you the notes. And then the next part repeats the first. So the third measure is, if you notice, it looks exactly the same as the first. And then it ends with 0 on the E string, 2 on the C, and then 0. So altogether that passage is then the next is kind of the same. Okay, and that's Shortenin Bread. And that's what we're going to be looking at next with the song. But first, just 2 other examples in tablature. I want you to notice how chords are written in tablature. It's not the same as a chord chart. So what it's showing you below, the first chord is our C chord. And it's all zeros on G, C, and E. So that's starting, the G is towards your head. So going from the bottom to the top. It's going that way. And then the 3 is on the A string. So notice they're all stacked on top of each other. So if you're just reading the notes from left to right, each part is what you're playing. So when they're all stacked, you're playing that all at the same time. So that's how a chord is written in tablature. And then the next one is our A minor. So it's showing that you're just playing the 2nd fret, and then the rest are all open, all zeros. And then the next is our F chord. It's showing that 2, 0, 1 on the E string, and then 0 on the A string. So we have our F shape. And the last chord is the D chord. And it looks like that. It was 0, 2, 3, 2. I'm starting on the bottom and working my way up. On the bottom of the tablature, that is. That because it makes more sense to build the chords going this way sometimes. Okay, the next bit is just to show what you might see with chords in tablature. So if they're going to put it in tablature instead of just putting the chord symbols, they might want to show you some other kind of fancy thing that the chords are doing. So in this one, it's arpeggios, which is just a broken up chord. So we're going to notice the first part, you're playing the 3 and the 0 at the same time. So these follow the same chords from the example above. So we have 3rd finger and open. So you're in your C chord shape, but then we do those 2 at the same time. So the top and bottom at the same time. I'm plucking with my thumb, and you can do any of these fingers. Actually, I do it with my ring finger. And then 0, 0, 0. Now this is a bit harder example. I only share it to illustrate what a broken up chord would look like on there. So I would go into how to play this at a later time. So that's an example of what you might see with chords written in tablature. So that's tablature. Like I said, I don't expect anyone to learn all these clearly. They're just different examples of what you might see for tablature. The first couple are more beginners, and then Shortenin Bread, which we'll be working on. But the last bit, it's more just an example. So now you know how to read tab. Yay! All right, before we get started in Shortenin Bread, I want to introduce the new chord that you'll need to know for Shortenin Bread. It is this chord, the G7 chord. Now we could play this song with just a G chord, but the G7 chord makes it sound a little more fun, gives it a little more color. So we're going to learn the G7 chord. And if you've learned these other chord shapes, this G7 isn't any more complicated than a G or an F chord. So notice on the chord chart, it's an open string, and then on the second fret you're using your second finger, so open, second. Then on the A string you're using your first finger. Then on this first string here, you're using your third finger. So it's kind of like a mirror image of the G chord. But you have to use different fingers in the G chord in order to make it work. So second is towards your head, your first finger is next, and then your third finger is on the string closest to your feet, the first string there. And they all get strummed together. And remember, you're using the very tips of your fingers, so you're not accidentally hitting other strings in there. Okay, and that's the 7 chord. Now before we move forward, just to review other chords we've learned. If it just has the letter alone, like a C, like the C, F, and G chord that we learned, those are what's called major chords. So major chords are more upbeat, for lack of a better term, maybe happy chords. And then if it has an M on it, it's a minor chord, which is more low-key kind of sound. Sad. And then 7 chords, which kind of have a more like bluesy or jazz kind of sound. And those chords have a little more tension in them, notice. They want to pull you back to another chord. Okay, so we have the G7 chord in there now. So 7 chords, minor chords, and major chords, those are some of the chords you'll see the most when you're learning easier songs. There's all different types of chords and other extensions, but these are some of the most basic. So, preparing for Shortenin Bread, I broke it down into the different parts of the song that we'll want to look at before we look at the lyrics for the song. So we have the G7 chord up in the corner, and then I put out a strum pattern that we can use for this song. Remember the strum patterns from our earlier lesson. So this one we're doing a down, down, up, down, down, or 1, 2, and 3, 4. So I'll do it with the G7 chord since that's our new chord. And we have 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay? So that's what we'll be playing through the whole song. That pattern. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. So now there's one other new thing you'll notice down below. Now that we have the chord progressions mapped out, notice that the first measure has all C, but then the second measure uses a combination of F and C. So this is something new I wanted to try and teach you for everybody here. You're doing 2 chords in one measure. So you're doing it in half. So F is on beats 1 and 2, and C is on beats 3 and 4. So it's 1, 2, and then 3, 4 is when you switch to C. So just to do the first 2 measures, C is 1, 2, and 3, 4. Then the second measure is 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay. So it's getting those chord changes happening a lot more, just so we can get our fingers moving in those positions. So the verse of the song, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay. Now I'd recommend playing that enough so you have it memorized. When we play it with the lyrics, the verse happens twice, that whole passage, and the chorus passage happens twice. So we play this twice. 3, 4. Okay, then the chorus. Now, no, we're still using the same strum pattern. So now to notice, you're holding C for a long time in the chorus. So you're holding it for 2 whole measures. So that'll sound like 1, 2, and 3, 4. 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 Playing it again. Okay. So now, that's what you'll be practicing. You'll want those memorized before you move forward with the song. But now I'm going to show you what it would look like if you're just searching for a song online. All right, this is what you might see if you're searching for ukulele songs on the internet. If you type in whatever song you want, along with ukulele tab or ukulele chords, this is probably something similar to this is what you'd find. A lot of times you won't even see the tab like I have listed here. It might just be like down below where it has the chords and the lyrics. So we practiced the chords beforehand because, as you'll see down below, that it doesn't show you how many measures you're playing those chords. So again, when you're looking at stuff like this, it's assuming that you're familiar with the song. So if you're just strumming along, you switch the chord when above the word that you're singing. So when you have like three little children lying in bed, and then you switch. Okay. So we'll go through the melody again. So this is Shortenin Bread. This is an old African-American folk song dating back from the late 1800s. And it's become a classic folk song. You'll find probably hundreds of different versions of it. So we'll get started. The melody on the tab, I play with mostly my finger and thumb. So having the melody like this gives you an advantage because you can play the melody and sing along before you do the chords. So you can kind of practice singing along with the melody. So if you don't read music, this is a great alternative if you have something listed like this. Learning how to read music is great because it shows the melody, and then you can sing the melody along. So again, you might not always find the melody listed in tab, but we're going to do it today. And if you didn't have the melody, but you already know it, you can look at just the chords and sing along. Okay, enough rambling. This is the melody. So we have 3 little children lying in bed. One was sick and the other most dead. Went for the doctor and the doctor said, feed those children some shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. So that's singing along with the melody. So I kind of have that idea going forward as I play the chords. So when you're working on that, on the melody, I just play the higher notes with your pointer finger. It's going to be easiest learning it at the beginning. And then notes on the C and G string, you can play those with your thumb. So you can alternate back and forth like that. So you have okay? All right, then once you have the melody down, here's where the fun part happens. You get to accompany yourself with the words. So then it just has the chords. I'm assuming now that you already know how many measures to play if you've practiced this. Because you wouldn't want to approach this until you already know how many measures to play. Since we're pretty new to ukulele, all of us here. But if you're looking for songs online, this is what it would look like. And then you can just kind of strum along and find out where the chord switches. So we'd play it like this. 3 little children lying in bed. 2 were sick and the other most dead. Sent for the doctor and the doctor said, feed those children some shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. So we're playing that with the strum pattern that I introduced before as well. So we'll do that one more time. 3 little children lying in bed. 2 were sick and the other most dead. Sent for the doctor and the doctor said, feed them children some shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. So that's our first song we get to work on. So the verse is just the first one I remembered. There's a lot of different verses to this song. I wasn't trying to be morbid or anything. It's an old song, so they have serious subject matter. But yeah, so there's other verses out there you can look for. Sing along your favorite ones, but that's the chord structure, that's the melody, and we have our first song. So, woohoo! So, to recap, we learned tablature, we learned a G7 chord, we learned a new strum pattern, and we learned how to play the chords along with lyrics. Pretty cool. So, I will see you next time. Hope you enjoy these. Just keep practicing. Take your time with them. Spend as long as you need to with these. And practice the most fun things for a while until you introduce something new. Okay, so keep rocking on your uke. That's ukulele time. Bye.